And because the major culprit for destroying the forest was the state, which was privatizing the forest, or giving it to friends, or just opening it up for cultivation and leasing, the state did not like when we informed the citizens that the state does not own the forests. The state is a custodian of the forest. Indeed, the state is the custodian of all our natural resources. And it is supposed to manage those resources on behalf of the current and the future generations. And that you don't get into those positions of power to exploit the resources, to enrich yourself with the resources, but rather to manage those resources for the common good. And as we made those seminars, people were very energized and they were very empowered, and they went back, they planted trees, they protected the forest, but they also asked questions to the state. Why are you destroying what is a common good? And because of that, we found ourselves in trouble. And eventually we found ourselves in jail and harassed because they said we were passing information the public should not know. Now, we thought that that is definitely information that the public should know. And so we continued to express that. And of course, we paid a heavy price, as we all do. In 1995, I was in Beijing. I wanted to go to Beijing because it was the United Nations Conference on Women. And I was given an opportunity to speak to the delegates, and I was asked to speak about the Green Belt movement and the value of the environment, especially in Africa. How do we protect the environment? What was the role of women in protecting the environment? And I decided I did not want to talk about the environment. I wanted to talk about the bottlenecks, the challenges we were facing as we tried to protect what we thought was a common good. And we thought that we should be celebrated, that we should be encouraged, that we should be supported, but not persecuted. So I said that some of the reasons why we were not able to accomplish as much as we could was because there was so much corruption in the state, that those who were managing the state were corrupt, they were irresponsible, they were unaccountable to the people. That until we managed good governance, until we reintroduced good governance, we could not manage those resources in a responsible way. And we could not guarantee that those resources would be shared in an equitable way. And therefore, there would continue to be this competition between communities, between tribes, which in my recent book I called micronations. And this, we said, is part of the reason why we are constantly dealing with conflicts. And we are investing in wars and conflicts instead of investing in development. And I was told I could go, but if I wanted to talk about how to plant trees, I could, but I was not allowed to go and talk about the bottlenecks or the challenges that I was facing if I was going to address the issue of governance, the issue of corruption, the issue of debts. That was not going to be allowed if I was going to be a member of the delegation. So I said, well, now what do I do? Because I really must share this. And the more I was opposed, the more I knew this must be something good. So it has to get to Beijing. And so eventually I approached a friend who gave me some money from the United Nations so that I was able to say this statement has been prepared under the auspices of the United Nations. And because of that, I was able to go and I was able to present that statement. When I went back, I was under a lot of pressure, but then I decided that, in fact, what I should do is write a book. And I am here in Oslo partly to attend this conference, but also to share that book, which is entitled Challenges for Africa, describing the challenges that we face as we try to develop, as we try to improve the quality of life, as we try to promote protection of the environment, which we say is indeed the basis for development. And partly we were here in 2004 to get the Nobel Peace Prize, and we are very, very grateful because the Norwegian Nobel Committee was able for the first time to see how we had succeeded in connecting governance, saying it is extremely important for us to accept that good governance must be one of the values that we must really work for, because without good governance, we cannot manage ourselves in a responsible, in an accountable way. And we cannot manage the resources that we have within our borders. We cannot ensure that those resources are shared in an equitable way in order to preempt many of the reasons we go to war with each other. And we said that peace in the future, therefore, will depend on how we manage our politics, our economics, how we share the resources, whether they are within our borders or beyond our borders, and how we ensure that there is equitable distribution of those resources. There is respect for the basic freedoms, one of which surely must be the freedom of expression, because those who don't know can sleep in peace. But those of us who know must express it. And in the words of that famous German priest, we must speak up, because otherwise there may be nobody to speak for us. Thank you very much. As we have seen in this conference, we still have many countries in the world where freedom of expression is not guaranteed, where journalists and writers are persecuted, they are killed. That is really alarming, and it shows that there are many places where the freedom of expression is not tolerated. We should be celebrating in areas where, or in countries where this is accepted. But let us also remember that there are many who are not able to express themselves.
How do you see the Horn of Africa's experience on freedom of expression, especially on Horn of Africa?
I think Africa in general, we are just coming out of a situation where we have found it very difficult to express ourselves. But I must say that Africa is beginning to realize that we have to open up, we have to be more democratic, we have to create a situation where people are allowed to express themselves.
Especially last year, with your experience in Kenya, there was too much harassment on journalists. Yeah.
Yes, because in every situation where the state is challenged and where the press, the writers want to demonstrate what is happening, and especially if what is happening is bad, as was happening in Kenya, when what is happening is something that the state should have prevented, then of course the state does not want that exposure.
Have you followed the Ethiopian election of 2005?
Well, I can't say that I was following the elections very, very closely, but we all know that if the elections, even when the states say the elections are free and fair, we know that quite often they are not free and fair, and journalists are not allowed to scrutinize what is happening in every situation so that they can confirm what states are saying. Even in Kenya, you will remember when elections were being announced, the press was thrown out of the room, and that may have been part of the problem. Perhaps if the announcements had been made in the presence of the press, perhaps we would have taken it. But now, in seclusion, away from the press, it always creates a feeling of there is something you are hiding.
Thank you.